huge trial yesterday, resisting arrest without violence and DUI, not guilty on both. This was huge for my client because he was facing over a year in jail, and I guarantee you in Polk County, that judge would have given him a year in jail. When people first come to me and they've been arrested, they're scared, they're confused, but they're also angry because they will tell me and go, that's not what happened, that didn't happen, that's not true. And they give their version of what happened, and it's usually, as you can guess, completely different from the police and their story of what happened. So in this case, if you read the police report, you would be astonished about how bad and how guilty my client was, because he supposedly was in an accident. He ran from the accident. The other driver had to chase him down. And then when the police got there, they said he was odor of alcohol, unsteady on his feet, he was confused, he was staggering. And so when the officer comes for the DUI specialized unit, he says, well, can I ask you some questions? And my client says, sure, I'll talk to you. Slurred speech, mumbling. And after he gets done asking him questions, he says, will you do some field sobriety exercises? Which my client smartly said no, because it's America. See the flag behind me? You don't have to do field sobriety exercises. So the officer goes, well, if you don't do them, I think you're under the influence of alcohol, so I'm going to arrest you for DUI. My client says, all right, do what you got to do, even though I'm innocent. And when he goes to handcuff my client goes, I'm not resisting. He's cooperating, doing the best he can, because it's hard to put your hands behind your back. As he's walking him away, the police report says that my client all of a sudden starts yelling, screaming, tensing, trying to pull away, and saying some really nasty stuff. My client should never have said that, but he did, because he was upset. And then they get a little rough with him at the car, and so he's charged with the DUI and resisting arrest. But that's what the police say. That's what their story was. But the jury went with what really happened, which is what my client said happened. So there was no accident in this case. The DUI officer didn't even check to see if there was an accident. The DUI officer didn't even really talk to the other driver, who was on probation for a felony and threatened my client with a gun if he didn't pull over. He lied about the gun because he's on probation for a felony and a convicted felon, and he can't have a gun. But he lied about it. He told police, I lied about the gun. I just did whatever I had to do to get him to pull over. When the police came, my client's like, there ain't no damage to my car. Take a look at it. Where do you see damage? So the police are all saying my client's confused. Yeah, he's confused, because why are you accusing him of being in an accident when there's no damage and no accident happened? And he's also confused because someone said, I'm going to shoot you if you don't pull over. And the cop said, nah, don't worry about that. We're not here for any shooting. We're here about an accident. So yeah, my client was confused why no one's believing him and what happened. Then when the DUI officer comes, he tries to trick him. He says, I'm the DUI officer, reads him his rights, and he says, can I ask you some questions? My client has nothing to hide. He goes, sure, go ahead and ask me some questions. So he starts to ask him screening questions. The police officer did not ask, what happened? Were you in an accident? Where are you coming from? How much did you have to drink? Skipped all of that, because he's not doing a complete investigation. Instead, he says, do you got any issues with your head? You got epilepsy, diabetes? And what those questions are screening questions to see if you're a candidate to do field sobriety exercises. See, before you do field sobriety exercises, the DUI officer is trained that they have to make sure that the behaviors or symptoms, if you're having trouble walking or you're having trouble speaking, are not medically related. Stroke, you got pins in your leg, you can't walk, you had surgery 2 weeks ago, because you're not supposed to be blaming, oh, he was unsteady on his feet because of an injury. It's supposed to be unsteady on his feet because he's impaired by alcohol. So the officer asked him these questions to get him ready for the field sobriety, the screening. And then he goes, okay, put your feet together, hands by your side. My client goes, whoa, whoa. What? I'm not doing any of your silly little exercises. I'm not running around this parking lot. I'm not balancing for you. I work too hard. I just worked 38 days in a row, 16 hours a day. I'm exhausted. I didn't do anything wrong. This guy threatens to shoot me with a gun, and now I'm over here the one getting arrested. Are you crazy? and you guys aren't even doing anything about the shooting. The deputy says, well, I'm here for the DUI. I got nothing to do with that. That's Winter Haven Police Department. I'm with the sheriff's office. I'm here for a DUI. My client goes, I'm not doing it. And he refuses over and over because that deputy wants him to do the field sobrieties. And my client is smart enough, sober enough, that he says, no, I'm not doing your field sobrieties. That's when he says you're under arrest. My client puts his hands behind. He's not arguing, not yelling, not fighting and everything. A key part of this case is that Winter Haven Police Department has body cams. Polk County Sheriff does not have body cams, does not have dash cams. You're like, wait, what year is this, Tom? Well, it's 2025, and I know you see Sheriff Grady Judd on TV every single day. He does his morning update with a video. So if it's so important for him to have a video to give the community updates on what's going on with criminal issues, traffic issues, why can't we have a dash or body cam for a citizen accused of a crime? And everyone goes, oh, that's expensive, but it saves trial time because we know what happened. And it's the price of justice and fairness. That's why we need videos. But in this case, the deputy's not used to videos. He doesn't realize, he thinks it's a regular DUI, but walking along is the Winter Haven Police Department, and they have a dash cam, a body cam. And as they're walking, the deputy says, he goes, well, kissed your CDL goodbye, his commercial driver's license, because he knew my client had one. And then he says, don't worry about 16 hours a day working because you're not going to have a job after this. Well, that's what set my client off, but you're not going to read about that statement by the police officer, the deputy. And when I asked him about it, he denied he made any statement to antagonize my client. Well, we had it on video. And so he just told him, you're losing your job, you're losing your livelihood, you're losing your CDL that you poured all that time, resource, and money into. So yeah, my client was upset. Should he have said the things he did? No. And when they get to the car, on the video, it looks to me like a little bit of an extra into the car, you know, that little extra shove. And so then everybody gets involved, and then they want to rib hobble my client. That means where you tie him and truss him up. And they finally get him in the car. And the officer who had been speaking with my client says, that was bizarre. He was acting so nice. I don't know what happened. And the officer goes, yeah, I had to push him into the car. And then he backed up and was pushing against me and everything, so I shoved him again. And on that video was the shove again. It showed how hard he was pushing on him. And the other thing the video showed was my client was walking normally, standing normally, speaking normally, and he wasn't confused about anything. And the jury agreed with us. So not guilty of DUI, not guilty of resisting arrest without violence, and he walked out of that courtroom instead of being walked back to the jail. So just because the police put in their reports all these bad things, you're not going to see the good things, and you need a good trial lawyer to get that out for you that knows how to explain to a jury, this is the way a DUI investigation is supposed to be done. This is what really happened. This is what makes common sense. And that the deputy skipped steps in his investigation because he didn't even know how the accident happened or if it even happened. So if you've been arrested, give me a call, free consultation. I'm happy to talk to you to get the real story. But for my client, big win.